Hello. Smaller update this week, but I still have a few new things to show. So, fishing always seems to be a major part of any game with boats. And while the original draft of it I had made was functional, I felt there was a lot of room for improvement. And frankly, still is a lot of room for improvement, but I've made a number of iterations that I feel improves the functionality of it and the player feedback a fair bit. I've added some pretty significant damping to the camera so that you can maintain a good view of the water or interaction area when moving the rod at extreme angles. I've made some improvements to line placement so there's no jitter or um, desync on the line to its attachment points. I've moved and adjusted the positioning of the rod a fair bit to allow more of it to be seen, as a couple of the very early testers felt that it was very poorly positioned before. And most substantially, I've made some very significant changes to the behavior of the fish to hopefully allow for a more engaging fight. There, a fish has bitten. So I've added diving and more aggressive direction changes for the fish. The aim isn't for a completely realistic or overly challenging setup, but I want the feedback to be there to hopefully be entertaining enough to make the player want to hunt down a new record, rather than just feeling an obligation to catch fish because you are hungry, for example. A number of new fish types have been added as well. And as previously mentioned, different fish have different behaviors. Some are more aggressive or fight more strongly, as well as the size of a fish within its given class can vary considerably, with some fish being generally small, but with the odd or very low probabilities to catch a monster of a given species. So you're not always going to see the same little model dangling at the end of your line. So I'm very much open to feedback on how things look or how clear it seems to be from a playing perspective. I lost that one. So you can lose a fish by spending too much time reeling while the fish is flying away from you, or pointing your rod in the same direction the fish is swimming. Any kind of behavior like that. Basically, the rod will emit that creaking, groaning noise when you're in a poor position, or have been reeling for too long, and any amount of time spent in that position will lose you the fish. And certain fish are more difficult to catch, for example. I actually caught one this time. So there's a look at the progress. I would still say much of this is very much in progress, but yeah, I welcome feedback or whatever thoughts you may have. Next up, a number of small changes have been made to the Zebek, which is a ship that's been absent for a number of videos. Nothing too dramatic, but I have reworked the rigging and some of the handling characteristics to hopefully feel a little bit better. And as for the model, I felt it was a little delicate looking below decks before. It's quite dark in here, so it's a little hard to see, but I have effectively doubled the amount of interior framing to make it look a little more sturdy and substantial, and I've made some changes to the provisioning area to hopefully improve the look. I've made some changes to the ambient audio below decks as well. You'll get some dripping from the vents and other little visual touches. Next up, I have started with a, for lack of a better word, loot system. So the idea is things like ship provisions can be found out in the wild, or even floating or with wreck, that sort of thing. And these can be picked up by the player and brought on board, and they can be used to supplement various types of provisions. Still pretty early, but you should be able to get an idea of where I'm going with this system. So, for example, you can pick up salted fish, which is a food provision, and just drop it into your ship's hold, and you'll get some flavor text, and the provision will be added to the relevant provision type. And lastly, another ship that has been absent for a few videos now is the Satia. A lot of changes have gone into the model, and there's a lot of work to do yet, but I wanted to show a brief look at the progress on the model, because I have had a few questions about this ship since it's been absent for so long. So I wasn't happy with the original model. I do want the largest ships in Following Seas to be multi-deckers. And the original model of this ship just didn't have the freeboard to allow that. So I have increased the draft by about 50% to allow for 2 fully enclosed decks. I have completely rebuilt the stern of the ship, as I wanted it to be very ornate and somewhat fancy pants looking. And most of the hull has been retextured, although there's still a number of elements to either do or redo, depending on where they were on the original model. So I do expect technical progress to be somewhat slower on this ship, as I'm currently focusing on getting the core ships, or the smaller ships, fully functional, just so that I don't get caught in an endless loop of making a change and then spending a week applying that change to 15 different hulls. But still, there has been some progress, and I have had a few questions about it, so here is a look at her. This will be, I don't know about the largest ship, but certainly the largest ship I expect to have functional at launch. It may be a somewhat slow and cumbersome ship with terrible visibility, but that's somewhat goes with the territory with these bigger vessels. If you want to carry an awful lot of cargo, then this is the ship for you. If you want that cargo to be delivered quickly, maybe less so. But it is a large ship, and it should be very tolerant of heavier seas with that big, beamy, deep hull with a lot of beam on it, and of course, that stern gallery will give you a nice visibility while you sit there feeling superior to all the smaller ships. So that's going to do it for this week. There's a little bit less content in this update as I've been pretty heavily committed to some work obligations, but hopefully I'm through the worst of that, and I hope to be able to put in a fair bit more time on features and other development over the next couple of weeks, and I should have a more substantive video out in the relative near future. But in the meantime, thank you all for watching, and I will have a new video out soon. Thank you very much.